This episode of the Story Cottage is brought to you by our friends at Domestic Dominion, the Kings Ridge Elderberries, and our supporters on Buzzsprout. Go to thestorycottage.buzzsprout.com or click the Support the Show link in the show notes and subscribe for just $5 a month to get every episode ad-free. And now, on with the show. Fairy tales, folklore, myths, and legends. Why do children need them? Why do nations and peoples create them? Who knows? Maybe some of them are real. Maybe some are merely imaginative. Is there a hidden wisdom worth finding in these tall tales? Proverbs 1:5-6 says, "Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance, to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles." We're your hosts, Jerry and Amy Davidson. Welcome to the Story Cottage. Please step inside. Jack was an idle and lazy boy who would do no work to support his widowed mother. And at last they both came to such poverty that the poor woman had to sell her cow to buy food to keep them from starving. She sent Jack to market with the cow, telling him to be sure and sell it for a good price. As Jack was going along the road to market, he met a butcher. The butcher offered to buy the cow in exchange for a hatful of colored beans. Jack thought the beans looked very pretty, and he was glad to be saved the long, hot walk to market. So he struck the bargain on the spot and went back to his mother with the beans, while the butcher went off with the cow. But the poor widow was very disappointed. She scolded her son for an idle, lazy, good-for-nothing boy and flung the beans out of the window in a passion. Now the beans were magic beans, and the next morning, when Jack awoke, he found some of them had taken root in the night and had grown so tall that they reached right up into the sky. Jack was full of wonder and curiosity, and being fond of adventure and excitement, he set out at once to climb the beanstalk to see what was up at the top of it. And he climbed, 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 until at last he climbed right up to the very tip-top of the beanstalk. Then he found himself standing in a strange country. In the distance, he could see a big castle, and as he was hot and tired with his long climb, he thought he would go and ask for something to eat and drink. He had not gone very far before he met a fairy who told him that the castle belonged to a wicked ogre who had killed and eaten a great number of people.
"It was he who killed your father,"
she said,
"and it is your duty to do your utmost to destroy the wicked monster. Go now and see what you can do. If you can carry off any of his treasures, you are at the liberty to do so, for none of them really belongs to him. He has taken them all by force from the people whom he has robbed and killed."
Jack was delighted at the idea of this adventure and set off in high spirits towards the castle. The castle was farther off than he had thought, and by the time he reached the gates, it was so late that he made up his mind to ask for a night's lodging. There was a woman standing in the doorway, but when Jack made his request, she was very frightened and said,
"Indeed, I dare not take you in and give you food and lodging. My husband is an ogre who lives on human flesh. If he were to find you here, he would think nothing of eating you up in 3 mouthfuls. I advise you to go away at once before he comes home."
But when she saw how tired and hungry Jack really was, she took him into the house and gave him plenty to eat and drink. While Jack was eating his food in the kitchen, there came a loud knocking at the door. The ogre's wife, in a great flurry, hid Jack in the oven and then hurried to let her husband in. Jack peeped through the oven door and saw a terrible-looking ogre who came stamping into the kitchen and said in a voice like thunder,
"Wife, I smell fresh meat."
"It is only the people you are fattening in the dungeon,"
said the wife. So the ogre sat down and ate his supper. After supper, he commanded his wife to bring him his money bags. He then began to count his money, thousands and thousands of pieces of gold and silver. Jack wished he could take some of this money home to his mother, and presently, when the ogre fell asleep, he crept out of his hiding place and, hoisting the bags upon his shoulders, slipped quietly away with them. The ogre was snoring so loudly that it sounded like the wind in the chimney on a stormy night, so he never heard the little noise Jack made, and Jack got safely away and escaped down the beanstalk. His mother was overjoyed to see him, for she had been very anxious about him when he did not come home the night before, and she was delighted with the bags of money, which were enough to keep them in comfort and luxury for some time. For many months, Jack and his mother lived happily together, but after a while the money came to an end, and Jack made up his mind to climb the beanstalk again and carry off some more of the ogre's treasures. So one morning, he got up early, put on a different suit of clothes so that the ogre's wife should not recognize him, and set out to climb the beanstalk. Tired of evil fairies using cold and flu season to turn you and your children into ogres every year? Yeah, me too. This cold and flu season, fortify your defenses naturally with the King's Ridge elderberry syrup and elderberry products. They grow the freshest elderberries on their Indiana farm, hand-pick and cold-press them into the tastiest syrup around. And they are packed with antioxidants and vitamins to boost your immune system. Defend the castle of your family's health. Use code STORY10 for 10% off your first order at tkrfarm.com. The King's Ridge elderberry syrup. Taste the difference. Help push back the curse. That's tkrfarm.com and use code STORY10 for 10% off your first order.
Honey, I need help!
Why? What's wrong?
There are dragons in our laundry and dishwasher.
Hang on, dear. I'm getting my sword.
No, wait. These dragons cannot be killed by a sword.
They've never tasted my blade.
I know, but all we need to kill these dragons is detergent from Domestic Dominion.
Okay, then we must make haste. How do we get some?
By going to domestic-dominion.com and entering code STORY. Ladies, our husbands are great for so many things, including slaying the run-of-the-mill dragons. But sometimes there are monsters that sneak through even the best defenses, like the toxins and chemicals in your laundry and dish detergents. And often, those supposedly clean detergents at the store are just pretty little poisoned apples. That's where Domestic Dominion can help. They're a small, family-owned and operated Christian business whose mission is to create clean, natural, quality products that aid the homemaker and create a culture of joy, health, and stewardship to the glory of God. They value the Lord and therefore value their products. All their products are effective and made with only 4 ingredients. Each product is non-toxic, pH balanced, and contains no surfactants, fragrances, or chemicals. They leave no chemical residue, and their laundry detergent is safe to use on any kind of clothing. We use their products in our home, and let me tell you, every load comes out smelling the way Cinderella's dress looks. With Domestic Dominion, you'll have a ball doing laundry. Go to their website, domestic-dominion.com, or click the link in the show notes. And use code STORY for 20% off your first order. And be sure to check out their aprons, linen covers, and anti-feminist stickers while you're there. That's domestic-dominion.com and use code STORY for 20% off your first order.
And he climbed 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 until at last he climbed to the very top and found himself in the ogre's country again. When he reached the castle, the ogre's wife was again standing in the doorway. But when Jack asked for a night's lodging, she said she dared not give him one, for only a few months before she had taken in a poor boy who seemed half dead with fatigue and hunger, and in return for her kindness, he had stolen some of her husband's money and run away in the night. But Jack begged so hard that at last she relented. She gave him a good supper and hid him in a closet before her husband came home. Presently, there was a great noise outside and heavy footsteps that shook the castle to its foundations. It was the ogre come home. As soon as he entered the kitchen, he sniffed suspiciously and said,
I smell fresh meat.
It is only the crows on the housetops,
said his wife.
They have brought home a piece of carrion for their young."
After supper, the ogre told his wife to fetch his hen. This hen was a very wonderful bird. Whenever the ogre said,
Lay.
she laid an egg of solid gold. Jack thought if he could only get this wonderful hen to take home to his mother, they would never want any more. So when the ogre fell asleep, as he did after a little while, he came out of the closet and, seizing the hen in his arms, made off with her. The hen squawked, but the ogre's snoring was like the roaring of the sea when the tide is coming in, and Jack got safely down the beanstalk. The hen laid so many golden eggs that Jack and his mother became quite rich and prosperous, and there was really no need for Jack to go again to the ogre's country. But he liked the danger and excitement, and he remembered that the fairy had told him to take as many of the ogre's treasures as he could, and at last, without saying a word to anybody, he started off once more to climb the magic beanstalk. And he climbed 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 until at last he reached the very tip-top and stood in the ogre's country. This time, when he reached the castle, he began to be afraid that the ogre's wife really would not let him in.
"Indeed and indeed, I dare not,"
she said.
"Twice lately I have given shelter to a wayfaring youth, and each time he stole some of my husband's treasures and made off with them. Now my husband has forbidden me, on pain of instant death, to give food or lodging to any traveler."
But Jack pleaded, and at last the good-natured woman, moved to pity by his travel-stained appearance, gave way and let him into the castle. When the ogre came home, the wife hid Jack in the copper. As usual, the ogre's first words were,
Wife, I smell fresh meat.
and in spite of all his wife could say, he insisted upon searching all round the room. Jack was in a terrible fright whilst he was hunting, but fortunately, he forgot to look in the copper, and after a time, he sat down to his supper. When supper was over, the ogre told his wife to fetch his harp. Jack peeped out of the copper and saw the harp brought in and set down before the ogre. It was marvelously made, and when the ogre said,
Play.
it played the finest music without being touched. Jack was enchanted, for he had never before heard such wonderful music, and he felt that he must have the harp for his own. The ogre was soon lulled to sleep by the sweet sound of the harp, and when he was snoring heavily, Jack crept out of the copper, and taking up the harp, was about to make off with it. But the harp was a fairy harp, and it called out loudly,
Master! Master! Master!
And although the ogre was snoring so noisily that it was like the sound of 100 dragons roaring at once, yet to Jack's dismay and horror, he heard the voice of his harp, and, starting to his feet with a bellow of anger, rushed after the daring thief. Jack ran faster than he had ever run in his life before, still carrying the precious harp, while the ogre ran after him, shouting and roaring and making such a noise that it sounded like 1,000 thunderstorms all going at once. If he had not drunk so much wine for supper, the ogre must very soon have caught Jack, but as it was, the wine had got into his head, and so he could not run nearly so fast as usual, and Jack reached the beanstalk just in front of him. It was a very close shave. Jack slid down the beanstalk at his top speed, calling at the top of his voice for his mother to fetch him an axe. The ogre came tumbling down the beanstalk after him, but Jack seized the axe and chopped the beanstalk off close to the root. Down came the beanstalk, down came the ogre, and falling headlong into the garden, he was killed on the spot. After this, Jack quite gave up his lazy idle ways, and he and his mother, with the magic hen and the wonderful harp, lived in happiness and prosperity the rest of their lives. All right, welcome back to the Story Cottage. We hope you enjoyed that very tall tale. All right, first question. What sort of values do we see in the characters in this story? Well, we really kind of only have Jack to look at in this story. He at first values his idleness, laziness, and anything at all that keeps him from having to work hard. He wouldn't even help his own mother. However, as the story unfolds and he receives a mission from the fairy relating to his father, we see that he grows and becomes fond of adventure to the point that he finally abandons his lazy habits.
Yeah, what can you learn to apply these things in your daily life? Well, first, parents, don't facilitate or accommodate laziness in your kids. Boys especially can be prone to apathy and idleness, and our world today makes it quite easy to be idle. So we must discipline our children and set a fire in their souls to work hard.
Yeah, and secondly, to the boys especially listening, you were made for adventure and risk. God made a crazy cool world with a lot to discover and a lot to conquer. However, most of us won't run into magical ogres with a hen that lays golden eggs whenever we say.
Darn.
You know, most of us won't. Some, who knows. But for boys and girls, as you grow, you'll find that by taking on the adventure and difficult work, truly difficult work of faith in Christ, in marriage, in family, and just in self-discipline, if you take on that hard work, God will bless you in the ways he sees fit. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all so much for listening to this episode, and we can't wait to see you next time.
We'll see you then.
Toodaloo.
Thank you for joining us here at the Story Cottage. If you liked what you heard, smash that follow button and leave us a 5-star review. It tremendously helps with the algorithms so folks like you can find us. Go to thestorycottage.buzzsprout.com or click the support the show link in the show notes to subscribe for $5 a month to get every episode ad-free. And follow us on X, Instagram, or Facebook. And please, join us next time.